Here at Kyalami, qualifying is about to get underway for the second round of the Intercontinental GT Challenge powered by Pirelli for the annual Joburg Kyalami 9 hours. Tomorrow's race and today's qualifying split into the 3 segments, 15 minutes per part. And it's going to be interesting to see not only the order in which the teams send the drivers out, but what the grid is going to look like, bearing in mind that it's not just your best time, it is the best average of the 3 drivers. Amanda Busick in the pit lane, David Addison and John Watson trackside, and the temperatures, John, are going up and up.
They are screaming 54.4 Celsius track temperature. I don't know why the tarmac macadam isn't melting, but certainly that puts a big pressure on teams because the weather 24 hours from now is meant to be identical to what we have today. And that's going to be a totally different scenario. I don't remember it being as hot as this for any of the previous events we have been involved with over the last 4 years.
It was a bit hazy over Johannesburg this morning. It has got brighter and clearer. The circuit has been busy as well because we've had a number of support races as well, one of which has deposited a little bit of oil on the circuit. So the teams have been told that oil has been treated from pit out all the way round to turn 4, which, if you prefer, is the exit of the Jutski sweep. Let's have a look at the circuit because it is a great lap, this, just under 3 miles in length, 2.810 miles. It starts with that long blast from the kink down towards the left-hander of Crowthorne, up through the Jutski sweep, and then towards Barbecue Bend, up at turn 5, which is the sort of top right as you look at the map, heading towards the end of the first sector, down towards that sweeping right of Sunset, then up towards Clubhouse, wriggle your way through the S's, and then, John, towards the end of that second sector, you've got that long climb up the hill.
Yes, the run up to Leerkop. It's a blind approach as you get up. There's a double left-hand corner, then the drop down the mine shaft all the way through to then the first of the 2 corners called Crocodiles. And I wonder where the tracer is, the tracker. I used to do this with a tracker. We've been the tracker. Anyway, let's continue on. So through the Crocodiles, then the short sprint down to Cheetah, quick right flick. You'll get great camera shots there where you'll see drivers clipping the curb. It's the body language of cars through Cheetah, which I think sums it all up. And then that final rush down into Ingwe, turn 16. But of course, let us never forget, dreaded track limits.
Yep.
And turn 16 and turn 2, surprisingly, are the 2 corners where drivers have had times pinged or removed, as we saw this morning when we had that pre-qualifying session.
Well, the 2 corners in question were resulting in lap times being deleted, which could well be significant. Now, just think about this, 3 miles to a lap and 15 minutes per segment. You're not going to get that many laps in, are you?
Well, you've got an out lap, which is probably going to be, at best, if you nail it, 10 seconds off what would be a normal time. And you may not want to nail it because if you've got a brand new set of tyres, maybe you do want to be aggressive on that out lap because you want to get the best of that new tyre on your first flying lap. So those are all things drivers and teams have got to factor in. So maybe that out lap might be 15, 20 seconds off the pace, which then, of course, eats into the available time. And if you do 3 flying laps, and you might want to come into the pits and have a chat and whatever, well, maybe the time is just evaporated.
Yeah, and it also means you need a banker, don't you? Because, as you say, if you do squander a lap through the track limiter fences, you've not got too many options to go and gather the lap time back again. So, in the heat, 1 or 2 of the locals under the shelter, getting ready for action.
This is Kyalami, as I always remember it. It's always a family affair. People come out. Oh, there you go. There is the braai. Well, for those that know what a braai is, it's a form of a barbecue, basically. So we're talking about the bratwursts and all the other local delicacies that will be being cooked all around the circuit. And, of course, the ever-present chicken. I think chicken and Kyalami go together like strawberries and cream.
Well, as the cars make their way to the end of the pit lane, we're going to be in business very shortly with the green flag imminent. And let's just check in with Amanda Busick down in the pit lane, topping up her tan, getting ready for qualifying, Amanda.
Well, luckily we have a nice shade here on pit lane. I'm sure that is to the relief of the drivers and the crews, but this is what everyone is after right now. I wanted to talk to the guy that comes in with after setting that fastest lap at Bathurst. Talk to Mauro Engel ahead of this session of if he has anything up his sleeve that he's going to show us here. He will be first out in the 999 Mercedes that'll try to set that lap time. but said this track is very technical. There's not a certain sector that you can get an advantage of. There's not one that really has a disadvantage. It's all about flow, hitting your point marks, and seeing if you can put together a nice lap that can be at the top of that qualifying list. He's going to try to do that here today and see if they can lead that team to the top of the qualifying order here.
And of course, that's only half the story, isn't it? You battle your way through qualifying, and then you've got to do it all over again for 9 hours tomorrow. Car in strife there, leaving the pit lane. That's Sun Moodley's Mercedes-AMG that has expired at the exit of the pit lane. Now, has he broken the beam? Yes, he has. So he's left the pit lane, technically.
Can't push him back, can they?
No, not from there, because he's the wrong side of the beam. Technically, he's on the racetrack, so hopefully he's going to be able to go through the restart cycle and get that car fired up, and the drivers that will have to swerve around him will have to break that white line, but I think you can give them license so to do because it's a safety element, but this might actually be a red flag to get that car out of the way.
I have a feeling that could be a delay to the start. We're already 1.5 minutes into the session, and we haven't seen a car technically on the racetrack, albeit one is at the exit of the pit lane, which comes, oh, there we go. So it's been a reboot, reset, and the number 11 Mercedes-AMG GT3 is on its way. Bigfoot Express Racing.
And that's one of the good things to praise from race control. Rather than panic and throw a yellow or a red, they put a yellow flag out just to warn people there was a slow car. Let the driver go through the process of trying to restart it. It fired up. It's about 30 seconds or so. Give the driver the time. It worked. Pit lane's clear.
But most teams have lost the best part of 2 minutes in this session.
They have, but I don't think anybody was really chomping at the bit. I mean, looking at that pit lane, the car's still in echelon. You don't want too many laps because you take life out of the tyres. So timing in all of this is important. Not only a good lap time, but when you send the car out there, for example, Stephen Grove. Now, he was first out, but straight away, because of the stragglers, he's going to find himself, rather than with a clear road, in traffic.
Always the same old story. First out will always meet at the beginning of his flying lap. Those that have come out just held back. So it's incumbent on those cars, and we can see directly ahead. 2 cars as they're making their way into sunset, one of which is the 75, the car that has been pretty much the dominant car throughout these 3 sessions we've enjoyed over the 2 days.
So Porsche comes up then to now Yanni Mettler, who has gone out first in Mercedes number 75. That's the Sun Energy SPS Automotive Performance Bathurst winning car. Jules Gounon, Kenny Hubble, the other 2 drivers. There's been a bit of a shuffle around of the driving force. Lucas Stoltz goes to a different Mercedes because Kenny Hubble, having won Bathurst outright in Pro, now wants to go back to try to keep his Pro-Am title that he won last year. So you can't have 2 drivers of the strength of Gounon and Stoltz plus Kenny Hubble to go Pro-Am, so the teams are split. There, Mauro Engel good to go in the Gruppe M run Mercedes. It had all sorts of strife when we saw the car at the Gulf 12 Hours at the back end of last year. They were still working on that car when it arrived here. Many of the cars now in IGTC, so peripatetic, they never really go to base. They just prepped and re-prepped at the next venue.
Well, it's the nature of a GT3 car that, while they are pure racing machines, they're not fragile little things like a single seater is. So a lot of the work can be carried out away from the home base. Let's see what Stephen Grove's going to do. Comes across the line. He's the first driver to break the beam. A 151.586. Well, that's an opening volley. I don't think that was a flat-out effort from the Porsche team. As we now look and see Marcus Winkelhock.
Well, he should go quicker, and also Lucas Stoltz, Mathieu Drudi, Mauro Engel, you would anticipate should be up at the pointy end. You've got pros, you've got Pro-Ams, of course, in the Pro-Am cars. Sometimes it's the pro that will go out first, but ideally you want your gun in the last segment because the car is lighter, therefore it is quicker, and that's going to help your average if you can get the faster time, of course, out of your faster driver right at the very end. That is Sun Moodley, the 68-year-old, who has brought the slightly recalcitrant Mercedes back into the pit lane after its stall. And away he goes once again to see how he fares for a qualifying lap. He's one of the drivers doing the so-called Kyalami Super Cup, which is a 1-hour race within, of course, the 9. So at the end of the first hour, we lose 3 cars because their race is done. It's a way of attracting more cars to the grid, but they're not designed with long-range fuel tanks. So it's single driver, 1 hour.
Well, this is the driver car pairing that currently has got purple sectors 1 and sector 2. So Marcus Finkelhock is on course 2 with just under 9.5 minutes of the session remaining to go quickest overall. And I somehow imagine that time is the time he records is a time that will be eclipsed pretty much once the rest of the field get out and get a couple of laps under their belts.
Well, he's about to break the beam, goes through now, and that time is a 46.460, 5 seconds quicker than Stephen Grove. So Marcus Finkelhock with an absolute best in sectors 1 and 2. Lost out to Maro Engel in sector 3. Maro Engel already on to his first flying lap. But that's a pretty good effort, that, from Marcus Finkelhock, getting the car up to the pointy end in Q1.
But it's quite a long way away from the times that we have seen. This morning we saw a 142.6. So just 3.8 seconds away. Now, okay, that was the first flying lap. It was not necessarily a committed lap. And this may go on to be one of those more committed Marcus Finkelhock qualifying attempts. But bearing in mind that the ambient temperature is still just over 30 Celsius, track temperature just under 55 Celsius, has that had a bearing on what the track is going to give back to the teams in terms how much has it changed in the space of the break between finishing that session this morning and going into qualifying now?
Lukas Stoltz then goes quickest, 145.479, so nearly a second quicker than Marcus Winkelhock. Stephen Grove third from Yannick Mettler, Mikkel Patamba, and then Charles Arranges. Those are the 6 that have done a lap time so far. As down through mineshaft to the Crocodiles comes Marcus Winkelhock, who loses that now to Mathieu Drudy, his teammate, who goes second. Then the 2 Audis run by Arkinarka's Attempto stable. This lap, though, from Winkelhock, as you can see, purple, he's wide up the curb, but this looks good, John.
Yes, I mean, this is the first proper attempt by Marcus Winkelhock, so just be careful of track limits. That's perfectly acceptable in my book. So it comes across start-finish line now, 143.8, so that gives him an advantage right now, 1.6 seconds over Lukas Stoltz in the number 20 Mercedes. There it is. Was the number 3.
Yeah. That is Mikkel Patamba, another of those doing the 1 hour Super Cup race. Comes up towards the line, just up the road ahead of him is Yannick Mettler, who goes second, 143.972, only a 10th down now on Winkelhock. Patamba third, but not really counting him as a factor as far as the grid is concerned. Stoltz drops to 4th, Drudy 5th, Stephen Grove 6th. And with all respect to him, ignore number 51 Audi of Joseph Ellerine at the bottom, because that's a GT4 car and therefore will not have anything like the pace of everything else around him.
So the car we've got to keep an eye on is the 999, the Mercedes-AMG Team Group M, and there's the 75. Now that, in the hands of Jules Gounon, has been absolutely the star of the weekend to date, closely followed by the 999 of Marcello, Maro Engel and Michael Granier. So those 2 Mercedes are the 2 that most likely will be vying for fastest overall, but Matteo Drudy making it an Audi 1-2 with just 6 minutes to go.
And less than 100th of a second behind teammate Winkelhock, 97 thousandths is the margin. Improvement coming also a little bit further down from Audi number 80 of Kanda Mokina. Right, so that is Mathieu Drudy's second fastest then. And is he still pressing on? 5 minutes and change on the clock. We haven't yet mentioned him, but Dries van Thor for BMW now, the WRT driver, has gone 5th, number 32, in the very Belgian but also very Shell livery, black, red and yellow car. There, Yannick Mettler dives up the inside, coming down to turn 16, goes ahead of the GT4 Audi of Joseph Ellerine and now rumbles his way up towards the line. Yannick Mettler third, but he's done an absolute best. Look in the middle sector. This should be an improvement, but no, he's down in the last sector because of traffic. Stays third, slightly better lap time, but stays third.
Best of the BMWs presently is Dries van Thor, currently 5th on 145.1. That's a new seat for the Belgian driver, and it's no longer WRT Audi, it's WRT BMW. As we go back to Matteo Drudy, so fractionally down in sectors 1 and 2, so up in terms of going quicker. So Drudy, personal bests, coming through the penultimate corner down the hill into Ingwe. So the Audis seemingly at this phase, just under 5 minutes remaining, have a handle on qualifying.
Seem to, don't they? I mean, there, Drudy goes fastest, 1:43.5, so 2/10 up on Winkelhock. What about BMW? What about Morrow Engel as well? Number 999, 9th fastest only, but look at Engel, purple, green, lights are flashing. Van Thor up in the inside of the BMW, so Engel should be an improver. Van Thor should be an improver. Does Engel go top? Potentially, he's got to beat a 43.5, 42, 43.9, so only third. Van Thor behind him goes 5th, so improvements both, but again, Engel nearly but not quite.
Seems in that last sector, I don't know why, but again, referring back to what I said at the top of this particular qualifying, track temperatures, ambient temperatures, something has maybe changed the racetrack in the way teams left it and now coming back to it. So Luke Stoltz, where is he presently? 7th, got middle sector, fastest overall, but a loss 0.2 of a second in sector 1.
And Yannick Mettler has gone fastest by 11 thousandths. Look over Matteo Drudy. Stoltz up to 3rd ahead of Winkelhock, so Engel is down to 5th and Van Thor is down to 6th, and we've only got 3 minutes of Q1 to go. That is Lucas Stoltz up on the inside. This car that he shares with Reese Barr, new to GT3 racing, or relatively new, he's done precious little, and the very experienced Miguel Ramos, who's been a serial category winner in GT World Challenge Europe for the last couple of years. Now, look at this from Philippe Eng.
Okay, that's pretty impressive. 10th and a bit up, loses a little bit of it down in the middle sector. People had been expecting BMW to be very strong here, principally because they run a turbocharged V8 motor where the rest of the field are naturally aspirated. And the advantage of a turbocharger at this altitude, 5,000 feet, is fundamentally you've got more horsepower.
So out of turn 16 he comes up towards the timing line, and Eng was 10th, and at the end of the lap, Philippe Eng, fastest of all, 1:43.509, 100th of a second, quicker than Yannick Mettler. We were saying this morning, as now Dries Van Thor goes quicker still for BMW, and Morrow Engel goes 2nd. We were saying this morning BMW was keeping its powder dry, and look at that, all of a sudden the 2 of them in the top 3.
Well, I did have a quick word with Vincent Voss, the boss of this WRT team. He was being very careful and downplaying, well, we're learning, we don't know, we think, well, maybe the hand has now been shown. So Van Thor quickest overall, 1:43.2, and Morrow Engel just over a 10th and a bit behind, then Philippe Eng in the 2nd of the WRT BMWs. Getting used to saying it.
But look at Eng, because he's going quicker still. He has done another absolute best within the first sector. So Philippe Eng doing a 32.5, couple of tenths up on 1 or 2. So Philippe Eng might yet go faster because he can get this lap and even one more done if the tyres are willing.
I think that is going to be the key, that at some point you reach the peak of the tyre performance and then you get a sort of a gradual dropping off, then it goes into a plateau where it stays then for a considerable length of time. But Dries Van Thor following down behind the Mercedes, looking to see any purple. So Philippe Eng ought to be able to regain.
Yeah, from Eng's point of view.
There's Engel and Eng. So this is Philippe. So the BMW stays in 4th. Yeah. So what happens here to the 999 Mercedes?
Goes fastest, and Van Thor, who was fastest, is 2nd. So Morrow Engel, with a slower, then an absolute, and then a personal best sector in sequence, goes to the very top. This is the last lap of Q1. So Morrow Engel digs deep and goes fastest of all. You've got to say that's the gun Mercedes, because it's the proper pro category, not a Pro-Am entry. But Grupper M doesn't have a totally bulletproof record in terms of reliability. It was out on the first lap, remember, this car here in 2019. They really struggled with the pair in the Gulf 12 hours, much to everybody's surprise. So reliability is going to be the real question mark over this car. It lacks nothing in terms of the driver's strength, but have they got round the reliability issues?
Well, they've certainly got the pace right now. Reliability will be something will be seen tomorrow afternoon, and well, at least you've got the pace. That's the key. Remember, of course, cars are qualifying with a fuel load that is gradually dropping, so between the start of Q1 and the finish of Q3 there'll be quite a big difference in the static weight of a car. So the times that we've seen in this session, 1:43.1, which is about a half a second, a little more slower than we've seen on Thursday afternoon and here Friday morning.
So cars having taken the flag, making their way down the pit lane. Good job done by both Mattia Drudi and Marcus Winkelhock. They are in the hunt. And okay, they may not currently be at the top of the times, but it's all about where you are after 9 hours. It starts at 1 o'clock, this race tomorrow. So as you would have gathered therefore, it takes you to 10 p.m. when it's going to be dark. Traditionally there is rain. I keep being told by people that know about these things, there's not a hope of rain this year. Forget it. You're not going to have any rain at all. But what do you think?
I would agree with them because they're the people that live here, but Johannesburg, things change very quickly. You can get, we explained this morning, all of a sudden you can get a 30-minute sort of thunderburst, and it can just literally turn everything from being a stone dry, beautiful racetrack into something you couldn't even put out basically a safety car on. But right now, the weather forecast we're having for today and for tomorrow is absolutely, as you would hope it would be here in Kyalami, glorious.
Well, that is Mauro Engel's car. That is the one that is fastest by 0.132 of a second. Last over the line to take the flag, including Michael Patemba's Mercedes in the background. But Mauro Engel, good job done by the very eloquent German driver, the most Australian-sounding German you'll ever find. And out of the car he gets. So Mikael Grenier will do Q2, Raffaele Marciello Q3. It's always a fascination with these manufacturer teams that, of course, you can have a driver as a deadly rival one race and your co-driver for the next. Mauro Engel and Raffaele Marciello toe-to-toe on the first lap in Macau last year. Deadly rivals, but here they are sharing a car. So Engel is the fastest then, from Dries Van Voor and Mattia Drudi, third, Philip Eng, fourth, Yannick Mettler, fifth, Lucas Stolz, Marcus Winkelhock, and then Michael Patemba, eighth fastest. So Mauro Engel has done a very good job in Q1. Let's hear his thoughts, because Mauro Engel is, I think, disrobing at the moment, ready to talk to the team. But Amanda is down there, and hopefully she'll be able to persuade Mauro to come and have a word.
He's currently on the process of putting his teammate into the car, so we will absolutely try to get Mauro for a little reflection on that lap. He was very diligent in telling Mick Grenier some info on what he wanted to relay over to him. I wanted to give a little update on the tires and talking to some of the teams. They do think that there's about 4 to 6 hot laps available in these Pirellis, all 4 new ones on the Mercedes here right now. In talking to just getting the tires up to temperature, no tire warmers here, and although we have a super hot track, there's still a little bit of getting these Pirellis up to performance.
Interesting that, because yes, as you say, it's such a hot day, you wouldn't have thought they'd need very much coercion, but the team working hard. Right, that's the number 20 Mercedes that Lucas Stolz did drive. Reese Barr and Miguel Ramos drivers 2 and 3. The fast lane is open. That means that the cars can now go down to the end of the pit lane to queue, but it doesn't mean that the pit lane is open. New sticker tyres going onto a car. John said it before, but I'll get him going again. A sticker tyre is a great thing to have. Let me just rattle through these results. We'll come back to tyres, John. Mauro Engel fastest then by 0.132 of a second from Dries Van Voor and Mattia Drudi third. Philip Eng fourth, ahead of Yannick Mettler, then Lucas Stolz. Marcus Winkelhock seventh, and Michael Patemba eighth, one of the Super Cup entries. Then for the local Audi of Quanda Mokina, that is ninth, ahead of Stephen Grove and Charles Laranges. And then you've got Sun Moodley and Joseph Ellerine rounding out the order. Those with just one driver will only do the first hour of the race. That's the distance for the Super Cup. And once they've done that, then they're done. Peel into the pit lane, and a result for those 3 cars can be declared. Everybody else battles on. Right, Q2 coming up. Tyres, sticker tyres, John. Great feeling for a driver.
Well, you've got to go out and get those tyres. I mean, the track temperature is so high, it shouldn't really take a very long time for the tyre to, let's say, come in. We saw that with Marcus Winkelhock in particular in the Audi. His first lap out wasn't particularly quick. He then was able to lean on the car a great deal more, and that was because the tyre was working in unison with the racetrack. So maybe it is going to be the out lap at a reasonable pace before then you can stand on it as you come across to go onto your first full flying lap. But still, we're half a second and a bit away from the best times that we've seen through Thursday and this morning. So I would hope with fuel loads diminishing But in some cases, the pro cars, I think they will do. Some of the others, it's not going to make a big difference.
Well, we've been discussing Mauro Engel's great pace earlier on. He's gone through that process of installing a co-driver. Now, therefore, Mauro is good to talk to us.
Well, he said it on the last lap here in qualifying, lap number 6 with those tires and getting everything up to temp and using that. You told me prior to qualifying you needed to make sure that you hit the technicalities of this track. Are you happy with what you saw out of that?
To be honest, it was really challenging. The grip level is much lower than this morning, and it was a challenge to adapt. You know, a lot more sliding going on, a lot more untidiness than what I would have liked. But obviously, the same for everyone up and down the grid. So happy to be P1 there.
We saw you embracing Mick before you got in the car in a long conversation. What kind of information or insight did you pass on to him?
Not to expect too much grip because, I mean, we're quite a long way off the lap times we did earlier yesterday and earlier today. So just to expect low grip because it can catch you out, then you overdrive, overpush, and so on. So just to tell him that, you know, expect low grip and just a few more sort of small details.
Thank you.
So that's Mauro Engel.
David, just to point out, I didn't put those words into Mauro Engel's mouth. He's repeated me verbatim.
It must be true, then.
Listen, would it be anything else?
Far from it.
Everyone's a gem.
Right, what's going to happen in Q2 then? Because different drivers, this is where you'll start to see a different pace. And once more, it's that EB and Porsche that's keen to get down the pit lane first.
What we're going to see, I would assume, is that the pro cars will begin to open the gap between the Pro-Am and others, simply because the AMs or the silver drivers in some of these other cars are not going to be able to match the pros in their cars. So let's wait and see whether the spread will become greater than it has been at the end of Q1.
Right, so Brenton Grove, his son, is the first one out from Reese Barr, number 20 Mercedes. Reese will be fascinating in this because he's had no mileage really in this car and he's not done very much racing in the last couple of seasons, thanks to COVID and other reasons. Momir, number 80 Audi, that's Kenny Harbaugh, Bathurst winner, going out next, looking to maintain his Pro-Am form. And of course he was last year's Pro-Am champion in IGTC, the great character, the Australian, former tyre cleaner, tyre washer, wheel washer for Peter Brock, and of course now somebody that owns ex-Brock cars as well as his own fleet. So there you've got number 33, the BMW, ready to rumble its way down the pit road. 33, Philip Eng had in the first part of qualifying. Augusto Farfus should be next. And 32 over at shoulder is going to be taken out then by Sheldon van der Linde, who of course is on home soil here.
Yes, and watching Sheldon van der Linde this morning in the M4 BMW, interesting, I felt that some corners, particularly into Sunset, his local knowledge and expertise was giving him, let's say, an advantage. But of course the differences between the 6 drivers in these 2 WRT BMWs are so small, but it was just interesting to see the local knowledge playing out, whereas other drivers and other brands were taking slightly different lines through that one particular corner.
So there you've got the 2 drivers, Mauro Engel and Raffaele Marciello, who will be watching what goes on now for Mikael Grenier, who ventures out. Other Mercedes, that's 86, isn't it, that went off the road in the first session. Arnold Neveling at the wheel. I don't think he actually got in the car in pre-qualifying. The Stradale car.
I think there might be a new body panel on the right front of that car, something in carbon on the right front. Just after that incident, well, it wasn't a very big incident, but it might have just marginally damaged it, so the replacement wing has not had a coloured wrap over it to bring the car, the symmetry of the decaling or the...
How laid back are they at WRT? Just sort of sauntering, waiting for the right moment. We've lost, for them, if you like, 2.5 minutes as Reese Barr blasts there through Sunset. But there's absolutely no urgency down in the BMW camp.
Slightly strange for me watching a driver from County Donegal on the northwest of Ireland here racing in Kyalami. Don't know why it is, but all you want now is a bit of a Van Morrison soundtrack to really make it emotional.
Right, so there is the local Audi, if you like, which heads up the rise. Hustling on, though, Brenton Grove in the Porsche comes down towards turn 16 into Ingway and heads up towards the timing line now. This to start a proper flying lap. You have a kind of start-up lap, but the next one's going to really count. That will be a fairly gentle 1:44.4. And he's done a bit better than his dad did for traffic, hasn't he? Because Stephen Grove copped for a lot of it, but only 8 cars on the track at the moment.
So that 1:44.4, currently that's what, 0.8 of a second ahead of Kenny Habul in the 75 Sun Energy Mercedes, and still WRT hanging back 10 minutes or so. So they're not planning on doing a huge number of laps, either car, so they'll get out, they'll probably have the best chance to get 3 flying laps and then an in lap. So that's confidence.
Yeah, it is. Whoops, that's off the road. That's Brenton Grove getting it all wrong as he came then up through Clubhouse.
Yeah, he got it wrong on the entry and it never got any better until he got to the exit and had all 4 wheels off the racetrack, so up through the S's. And hopefully has sorted himself out, so he comes through Leerkop.
Turns his way through the hairpin, and then it's downhill. Away now goes number 33, BMW. And there you see what I mean about the Belgian livery, the red and yellow and black adorning the Shell Helix car, which is going to be dispatched in a moment. Sheldon van der Linde would be oh so pleased to win this race. We've got a lap time being deleted, and it's come from Arnold Neveling, 86 Stradale Mercedes. Michael Grenier has done a 1:43.602 then to go fastest by 0.8 from Brenton Grove. Here he is in the Porsche.
Well, this lap will not be of any note because he had that off coming through Clubhouse corner, so all he can do is just reset and go again. Be interesting to see the time. 1:44.2 was about just over 0.6 of a second. But this is the car, no, this is the 75 car, it's the 999 that is currently quickest, so waiting to see Kenny Habul, currently 4th, well it says 3rd on screen, it says 4th on my timing and scoring.
It's 3rd on the aggregate, the combined, and it's 4th in this session. I think that's
what they're
reason
doing
for that. Yeah. Right. So we're looking at the grid. Our timing screens that we have in our booth are showing us this isolated session. So now it gets a little bit confusing because what we're seeing has 2 effects. One for this portion of qualifying, but of course also for the grid. Right, 999, Grenier, fastest in the session, and that car therefore is quickest on the average. You take, of course, the 3 times in the end for the 3 drivers and aggregate those. And for the Super Cup cars, they only do Q1 because they've only got 1 driver.
Well, one might say that's a little bit easier for the rest of the field, 3 cars less to concern you with than 3 cars that are at the tail of the field in terms of out and out pace. Grenier stays on the right to shorten the distance to start-finish line and goes...
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Purple.
Yeah.
Can't ask for more.
And that time is now in the ballpark of the times that we have been seeing over the previous 3 sessions on track, and a more representative time of what we can expect at the front of the field.
Now remember, you don't refuel through qualifying, so the car is, sounds to reason, heaviest in Q1, lightest in Q3. In other words, they're getting lower on fuel, lighter, and therefore faster as you go through, which is why many of the teams will keep their fastest driver for the very end. But that was Grenier mowing the lawn a bit on the inside, just unsettling the Mercedes.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very similar line to Sheldon van der Linde taking, but I think Michael Grenier got a little bit greedy on the inside, got the right rear, riding the curb, kicked up a bit of dust, slightly unstabilized the car, but nothing of any significance. But Dennis Marshall has been the car that's been 2nd quickest. That's currently down on, is 7th quickest. The sister car is down in 2nd position. This is Ricardo Feller.
Mo Mia in the number 80 local Audi, the car from MJR Motorsport. The car had a pit stop infringement and the team manager is being summoned to the stewards as up wide there goes Dennis Marshall, the German driver. But the first sector for Marshall was good. Ricardo Feller pressing on, I should say, and that is Grenier down in the middle sector.
Right, so has he got a straight line as he comes out of the final turn? He is doing precisely what he did 1 lap ago. Comes across start-finish line, and it's about It's 2 and a bit tenths of a second. No, it's actually almost, no, I beg your pardon. It's hundredths of a second.
Yeah.
Very, very close indeed. So that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's about 2.5 hundredths away,
Yeah.
really. That's all. So Grenier, despite losing out in sectors 2 and 3, was very, very good to compensate in the first sector. Right, Riccardo Feller, we've been getting excited about. Here he is at the end of the lap. This car is currently 7th in Q2 and 6th on the average. Up towards the timing line comes Riccardo Feller, who has done personal bests, breaks the beam, and as he crosses the line goes 3rd, and that puts him 2nd on average. Good job done. What's going on in BMW land? Sheldon van der Linde goes 4th, and Augusto Farfus 9th. So where does that put van der Linde, number 32, 4th on the average, as you look at Philippe Eng there?
Well, he's wanting his driver, Farfus, to get on with the program. That out lap was a lap, of course, only 146, as Dries van Thor and his partner in crime, I've got to say young Charles Vets, but Charles Vets, who that partnership have really, really been outstanding over the last couple of years, and it is a young partnership, but they've shown maturity as we go back to Michael Grenier to see what he can do.
And also keep an eye on Augusto Farfus, because he's done an absolute best in sector 1. We'll get Grenier over the line first, but he's a bit ragged there.
And something flew off the car. Looked like a little carbon fibre winglet or something just got kicked up. May have been by the side of the track.
And that's a bit wayward as well. To the line he comes, and that is a 43.2. So that's about 6 tenths down on what he was doing earlier.
And I think the reason for that simply is just he's had the best of the tyre in his first 2 flying laps. Augusto Farfus got that purple sector in sector 1. And this is certainly going to put the BMW into the frame. How far forward it will move it, we'll wait to see.
So Farfus goes across the line, 2nd fastest on average and 3rd in Q2. You notice "We Are a Team" written on the back of it, which if you were to take the key letters out of that would get you to WRT, wouldn't it? So good marketing again from BMW as he heads up the hill, now going up towards the sharp right at Barbecue. Quite a steep climb through that section of Esses.
It is. It's a lot of elevation change here on the Kyalami circuit. There always has been, whether you take the old circuit, the old Grand Prix circuit, or you take what is now the current circuit, sometimes a Grand Prix circuit, but not really since the early 90s.
How many iterations have we had now? Is it 3? Because there was the 80s, then there was one brought back in the early 90s, and then this, wasn't there?
Yeah, I mean, there's been 2 principles, and there was a small adjustment, but the original layout, which had I don't know how long the straight was, it felt like it went on forever, and then a series of really, really quick corners that culminated at that high up, it was in those days a right-hand hairpin at Leerkop.
Now there is Sheldon van der Linde. We've had a lap time taken away from Brenton Grove for, track limits down at turn 2, down at Crowthorne. Up to Leerkop goes van der Linde, whose brother Kelvin van der Linde, of course, busy on Formula E duty this weekend in the same country. So it's a very busy time for South African motorsport. And with 3 minutes of Q2 to go, down the hill he comes. Grenier now to the pit lane. That could well be his session done. No real point going back out again, I wouldn't have thought, with 3 minutes. Now, what about van der Linde here? He's done an absolute best, but he lost out in the middle. Yeah,
fractionally down, but nevertheless, he's got a clear run to the flag, or certainly to the line. And we've got 2.5 minutes or so remaining, so Sheldon van der Linde wanting to consolidate at worst and improve at best to try and depose the 999 Mercedes-AMG GT3. Can't do it this time.
No, that lap was on 43.0, so about 3 tenths down. He's got time for one more lap, but it's about 3 laps that's the operating window on the tyres for the BMW, so this may now be the end of the quest. Let's see if he can drag one more lap out of it. Augusto Farfus still is trying, though, because he's done an absolute best in Sector 1. Looking there at 99, Dennis Marshall. He's done a personal best in the first sector. And he is running ahead on the road of Farfus. So when those two come through, might well get some shuffling of the order as Dennis Marshall comes out of Leerkop, drops down the hill now towards Mineshaft.
Yeah, but chasing him is Augusto Farfus. He's gone purple in Sector 1. Coming to the end of Sector 2 for Dennis Marshall. We'll see what No, nothing particularly exciting in the middle sector for the Audi team. So all he can hope for is consolidation and retain over the 2 sessions his position.
So there is Farfus then dancing over the curb as he comes then now down to the left-hander, turn 16, up towards the timing line. And let's see where this puts him. 4th in the session, absolute best drop time in sector 2, keeps him 3rd on the average and keeps him 4th that lap within Q2. End of the session effectively now.
So your first full flying lap, but probably your second flying lap is the best lap that you're going to be able to get a time, and thereafter it starts to just gradually fade away. Oh, Augusto Farfus, did he look slightly strange in the middle of Barbecue Bend, but anyway, for him, he's finished. He's not continuing on to try and seek an improvement.
Pro-Am is looking good as well, with Jules Gounon yet to go. Kenny Harble has just improved, putting himself then 6th on the average, and that puts the car onto Pro-Am pole position. So with Gounon to go, that's going to stretch the advantage potentially over the opposition just a touch further.
Yeah, I think that the 75 Mercedes-AMG GT3 has got a handle on that Pro-Am category.
And a replay of Farfus there, catching Mo Mir at exactly the wrong moment, having to take to the grass in avoidance, and there really rather caught out by the closing speed. He was going much quicker than the Audi.
Yeah, but you know, if you're going slowly, you've got to be aware of traffic around you, and there's there will be pro cars coming quickly. So going into a corner like Sunset, you should have checked your mirrors to make sure you weren't going to cause an incident. That was Augusto Farfus will not be happy that he had to go off track and whatever. So it's just maybe inexperience. Put it down to that.
Right, so there, 1 or 2 of the teams back into the pit lane, ready to put the next driver aboard for Q3. And Amanda, I think, is ready, or at least is preparing herself with the BMW's Augusto Farfus to give way now to Maxime Martin, and then Charles Weird, interestingly, will go out last in number 32. Let's go to Amanda, because with the BMW teams changing drivers, there is news, and a good effort by, in that session, Sheldon van der Linde to put the car second, Augusto Farfus third. Amanda.
I'd say BMW overall is pretty happy in their efforts so far. We've been talking about the tire strategies for the different makes. Mercedes is looking at their window around lap 5 or 6. With the BMW, it's going to be around lap 3 or 4. Augusto Farfus talking to the last driver going in, and I'm sure he'll debrief on his performance and what happened in qualifying. I did one of the things that I love here. You talk about the racing that happens in Kyalami. Augusto's family is joining us here, and he's got his kids that were rooting him along on that. So while he might not be happy with the traffic that he found there, I'm sure he'll get some hugs and smiles from the kids.
Well, certainly he has won this in the past, so he knows what it's like to go rapidly around this circuit, and other drivers, Reese Barr amongst them, new to the venue. But a good session that by Reese Barr, putting himself 7th within that Pro-Am Mercedes. So let's have a quick look at the order of Q2. Mikhail Grenier doing the time, 1 minute 42.657, putting that car at the top. Sheldon van der Linde second fastest, second on average, and then Augusto Farfus 4th in the times, but 3rd on the average, ahead of Ricardo Feller and then Dennis Marshall. Kenny Harble then, fastest in Pro-Am. We're talking hundreds, though, within the average that's being set, that combined average. But don't forget, they've got Jules Gounon still to go, and he'll be quicker than Miguel Ramos. But you've also got Lucas Stoltz to factor into the equation as well in number 20. It's going to be very interesting for Q3, and that's coming up in a few moments' time. But Michael Grenier doing a good job. He impressed here last year, in fairness, and that's a good effort in that most recent session.
Yes, it is. So look forward to seeing Raffaele Marcello behind the wheel to see whether he can find further time for the 999 Pro Mercedes, the team Group M Racing. And we know what Raffaele Marcello is capable of. We've seen how quick Maro Engel, and as you pointed out, David, a very good run by Michael Grenier to consolidate that provisional quickest overall those first 2 qualifying sessions as we look into the BMW pits. And having a quick look, Maxime Martin. Just what age is Maxime Martin these days?
Late 30s.
Yeah.
But he can still deliver, can't he? Very, very experienced.
That's the experience
Yeah.
for sure.
And it's good to have him back with BMW, I reckon.
Absolutely, yeah. He was Aston Martin. Where else was he?
Well, he had his BMW spell in the DTM, didn't he? On the back of how well he'd gone in GT racing for the BBS private team, and then he went to Aston in sports car GT racing, and then back to BMW and back to GT, which is all good to see. Drivers discuss what the track is like, what the car is like. On the far left, as you look, in the white shirt, the tall figure of Yves Weerts, the W of WRT, in the flat cap, Vincent Voss. And that means that the driving force missing 2 because they're in the cars ready for the 3rd part of qualifying. So they're number 20 Mercedes for the SPS Automotive Performance team, ready to go. Miguel Ramos behind the wheel. So Luca Stoltz's efforts early on now being countered by his, if you like, Silver and Am co-drivers here.
Well, Miguel Ramos last year was in, was it the Garage 59 McLaren? Or
yes, that's right.
Advanced,
yeah, in the McLaren, yeah.
So going from, you know, a sort of slightly nervy, what might call nervy mid-engines, rear-engined GT car to a much more compliant mid-engined, front-engined GT car. So certainly a car I would imagine Miguel Ramos might find over the duration, a longer race, a very easy, comfortable car to drive.
So as drivers get themselves set, ready to go, we await the 3rd part of qualifying, and it's the time set in this that will go towards that average and then determine the grid for 9 hours. I think Amanda touched on this with people this morning in pre-qualifying, but it's going to be a very, very hard race in these temperatures. I know that you're not expecting one driver to do 9 hours. I think the maximum is something like 3 hours 45 that anybody can do. But even so, it's going to be tough with the heat in the car.
I mean, some teams may have a cool suit option, wherein you've got a series of capillaries running through your Nomex underwear, and that's plumbed into sort of like not a refrigerator, but effectively that you might call it that. And it circulates cold or fluid at a much lower temperature, and your body temperature is, so therefore it keeps your own body temperature at a more comfortable level. The danger is if that starts to malfunction, then you become a bit of like a broiled racing driver, which has happened.
Yeah.
And you know, sometimes drivers used to wear a balaclava or a cap, again with capillaries. I remember I did it on one occasion, and I found it very uncomfortable because it seemed to make your head feel unnatural. I'd rather have gone through the discomfort of having no cap and the heat than having a cap and having an unnatural cold temperature on my head. Track temperatures dropped a bunch, 38.9 from 54 point whatever. Well, there's a big, I mean, that is massive, absolutely massive.
Yeah, we're up to 3:45 local time, but as you say, it has become quite, not cool, but the temperature is dropping, and we've got 15 more minutes of session to go, and away they blast down the pit road there. Miguel Ramos And then behind is Clint Weston, who went off the road in that Stradale Mercedes-AMG in the pre-qualifying session, calls a red flag, not because of the damage really done to the car, and he was able to drive it back, but it was more the damage to the tyre barrier. It ripped the conveyor belting across the front, so that had to be sorted out.
You can see the replacement front guard on that car. So I don't think it was, it didn't appear to me to be involved in the collision, but maybe there was sort of residual damage that went through parts of the bodywork on the car. So anyway, whatever, they've replaced it.
Well, it's all very leisurely at EBM. Look at the Porsche El Bamba yet to go, as well as for Charles Wirtz, and also for the BMW of Maxime Martin, and for Jules Gounon. Just thinking through the lap. He's not having a nap. He's just sort of composing his thoughts, thinking about where he's going to brake late, where he grabs a gear, thinking his way around that lap, so it becomes almost second nature when he does go onto the circuit.
And what a phenomenal year he's had in endurance racing. So it almost becomes now the natural that he is going to be, well, he's the dominant in his car.
So we wait for the Porsche to go, and it does come now. The El Bamba Motorsport Run car accelerates now down the pit road. That's the exit of turn 16. That and turn 2 are where people are having laps taken away. And you can see the witness marks, the tyre marks, John, on the outside, proof of how wide people are going.
Yeah, you can see there's one set of tyre marks wider than the rest. And even on that, the dark grey tarmac, still wheel spin as the car was trying to get back on track. But of course, you're so far off track, there was no choice but delete whatever that particular lap time happened to be. Especially if it had been your quickest lap, you would have been very upset.
I think that's what we were talking about earlier on. Do a banker lap, because in only a 15-minute segment and a 3-mile lap, just under, you don't get that many laps in. Right, that is Ramos then, who goes through onto a flying lap now. And number 80, which I think I'd mentioned had lost lap times earlier on, it has now lost lap times up to a given point because of track limit abuses. So all lap times cancelled, not just out of Q2, but it says all lap times. So effectively no lap done, or they did do laps, the times from Q1 and up to a given point in Q2 taken away. So that really scuppers the average. With respect to the car, which hasn't been the fastest of Audis, I suspect it would have been near the back of the grid anyway, but that rather cements it. Yeah,
it does. It's a great shame, because I'm sure there was no deliberate intent to abuse track limits, but you know, it's a major event, and there's a lot of pressure on all the drivers, in particular the local drivers, and mistakes are penalised, and that's obviously the case for all the times from Q1, Q2 have been deleted, and well, they will be starting at the back of the grid.
Still the BMWs wait. And wait. And wait. And Miguel Ramos presses on. Look as he comes down the hill. Miguel has done a huge amount of GT racing over the years, but I can't think that he's raced here before. So there is the end of the lap, up towards turn 16. He's going to be wide.
It was wrong, all wrong on the entry into the final turn, and the penalty's been paid on that lap, but also going on to his second lap, 149.3. Well, that is not a representative lap time for that car, but this lap was likewise compromised by a difficult and poor exit out of turn 16.
Now, what Ramos has been able to do here, look, as he comes past the support race pit, is to get a clear road ahead of him. So the road is fairly calm, whereas others may well struggle as others come out of the pit lane ahead of them. 99 now goes to Alex Arca.
So this looks as if it's going to be a reasonable lap. And Alex Arca is certainly carrying good speed, but not got purple, so he currently is the quickest car in the field now. Again, an exit that's not going to be penalised, but across start-finish line, 145, 192.
Right, BMW 33, as you can see, going down the pit lane. 32 will be out shortly.
And Ramos pulls over to the side, and I suspect that he's given up on this run. He's going to go into the pits. I imagine he's got 9 minutes remaining, so he would have time to go in if he chose to do so. But it'd have to be a quick in and out, otherwise the times he's set so far not going to be good enough. Raffaele Marcello and the 999 Mercedes-AMG GT3 up the hill. Lots of curb on the entry into Leerkop, and then a much different exit. It hangs out in the middle of the racetrack to take the second part. So again, a different approach to others that we've seen so far this weekend from the Italian. So Marcello's got fastest speed in Sector 1, but fastest sector time in Sector 2. So we expect to see Marcello heading times at this point with just 8.5 minutes or so of the session remaining.
So Marcello goes through, and that lap is a 1:42.556, which is the best yet. 0.8 quicker than Alex Arca, so he's not hanging about, is he?
And that's the fastest single lap of the weekend by about a 3,000th or so of a second, but just indicative of what Marcello is capable of. So actually you just see his exit, so much energy and so much forward momentum carried by Marcello as he goes through and exits out of Barbic back. Bamber in number 4 Porsche, so currently 7th overall, and in this session waiting for Bamber to record a time. Well, actually that was pretty impressive because Bamber's gone and done a 1:42.4 and just blown away the competition.
So Porsche accelerates uphill. And there is Jules Gounon, who ought to be another contender for pole position, no question about it, in Q3 at least.
But entry into the S's, wide. He was in the middle of the road. That's not where he needed to be. I don't know what went wrong there for Jules Gounon. So wait and see the sector times for Gounon. He has got a green in Sector 1, and this is effectively his first flying lap. He's done an out lap. Nothing in Sector 2, so this is not a good lap, and that is because of the poor entry into the S's, so he's lost time there. So this lap is, well, Gounon is racing in the Pro-Am category. He's not in the race with Earl Bamber, Marcello or Patrick Niederhausen. In fact, Marcello has now just gone quicker than Earl Bamber, so we've now got a 1:42.0 by a significant margin. The quickest overall, almost half a second quicker than Earl Bamber on that last lap for Raffaele Marcello as a sterling lap.
Right, what about Gounon? He goes 4th on the average, 5th in Q3. You could argue that an overall pole position isn't the main aim here, and it's unlikely perhaps to get it. It's the class pole that they need, and they've got that ahead of the Earl Bamber Porsche. 6 minutes to go. So this final part of qualifying rattling through, as you would expect it to, really, with all the stars. Now there's an incident between Farfus and Mio being looked at. We saw that, it's come up now, but it's out of Q2. Remember when Augusto Farfus had to take to the grass in avoidance? That's now being looked at by the race officials.
Anyway, we saw Farfus having to go off track to avoid a sort of rather meandering Audi, which was on the racing line at the exit of Sunset, so I'm sure both drivers will give their various opinions or views of what occurred, and then a decision might be made.
Now Patrick Niederhausen has gone quicker in the first sector. He's 3rd in Q2, but he's 2nd on the aggregate, number 66 Audi. And now Charles Weerts gets himself up to 3rd on the grid. So what you've got on the screens that you're looking at is the grid order. We also have the isolated Q3 times, which are headed by Raffaele Marcello, 1:42.029.
Niederhausen's got the fastest sector time, personal best sector time, I should say, in Sector 1 on this current lap, nothing in the middle sector. And we're not seeing any purples coming from anybody as we, with just under 4 minutes 4.5 minutes to go. Jules Gounon comes across the line and 1:42.6. So that keeps him 5th overall, but more importantly, well, in fact, he's the second quickest Pro-Am, because the quickest Pro-Am in terms of lap times is still with the Porsche, but in terms of combined, Gounon still has the advantage.
So number 66, Patrick Niederhauser to the line. Alex Archer has lost a lap time for track limit abuses at turn 16. So Niederhauser with the car leaning on its suspension as he accelerates up then through Barbecue. Looking good, and that, I suspect, will be Marcello done for the session.
Yeah, he was marching back into the pit garage. So he's done his bit, he's done a stunning time. It's now 0.3 of a second in the second quickest car in this session. Earl Bamber in the Porsche. Jules Gounon is a further quarter second behind the Porsche. So Raffaele's done what he had to do, and he'll be as laconic and cool as he always is.
Absolutely right. So the car just sits there. It's work done for today. 9 hours of work to be taken on board tomorrow. As there, number 66 then comes through with Patrick Niederhauser 4th in Q3, and Raffaele Marcello with Michael Grenier, with Mauro Engel. Looked at the times, their work is done, and they're 3/10 ahead in Q2. They're 4/10 up, in Q3. They're 4/10 up on average anyway. So I can't see anybody threatening that pole position now.
No, but there's a battle for second overall between Niederhauser and Maxime Martin. They've got identical times over the two sessions. So
Niederhauser wobbled it over the curb a little bit.
He's okay.
Good in sector 1, down in sector 2, breaks the beam and does a 42.681. So that's 4th in Q3, second on average.
But this is the car, Maxime Martin, who could depose Niederhauser for overall front row of the grid position, second overall. And he does.
Good job done then by Maxime Martin. So absolute best, personal best, a little bit of time lost in Q3, but he goes 3rd in Q3 and second on average. And Mo Mir is being summoned to the stewards at the end of the session, one assumes, for that drama he had with Augusto Farfus.
Yes, and frankly, I don't think there's any need for Farfus to be involved, because he was the innocent victim from what we could see. Whereas, unfortunately, the Audi driver is going to cop it.
Well, he'll have a finger wagged, certainly, to be perhaps more aware. Now, 75, Jules Gounon, lap deleted for track limits down at turn 2. You're looking at him, but Jules Gounon has lost a lap time for track limit offences.
Not showing any special pace on this lap. So he hasn't got a green or a purple. And in terms of overall, he's 4th quickest. And combined, 6th quickest. And ultimately, that's what he's concerned about. He wants to be the quickest of the Pro-Am cars, and I suspect that's not going to change.
Yeah, it's the Earl Bamber Motorsport Porsche that's the main opposition. He'll get one more lap out of this if the tyres are willing. Jules Gounon goes through 1:43.477 then, is 3rd in Q3.
And he got a purple sector in that Q3 as well.
Yeah.
Which was pretty impressive in terms, 29.283. So that was good effort on that final sector for Jules Gounon.
Climbs the hill, as also climbing the hill is there Charles Weerts. So this car second on the grid, 0.3 of a second back from Raffaele Marcello, and he's about to drop down the hill once more. He'll take the checkered flag next time, I would have thought, so he'll squeeze this lap out of the session, but then one would have thought the tyres would have done their bit. In other words, this is the last real push. 20 seconds are on the clock as he comes then out of the Crocodiles, up now to Cheetah, and then down to Ingwe at the end of the lap.
So Charles Weerts second on the car, second overall. Combined in this session is 6th. And what happens now? Charles Weerts, I think, remains 6th overall, but looks to be able to consolidate his combined times to start the race from the front row of the grid alongside the 999 Mercedes.
Well, Raffaele Marciello, Mauro Engel, Mikael Grenier, an excellent job. There the celebrations get underway at Grupper M, because the team that's been busy making sure the car is good after its travails in the Gulf has gone to the top. And really this morning they didn't seem to be sparkling. It took quite a long time before a lap came from that car as they worked through electrical dramas. But the three of them celebrate pole position as their Canadian driver Mikael Grenier heads towards the lip of the garage. Mauro Engel and Raffaele Marciello just looking at what else is going on. And the very quiet and understated Grenier developing a reputation as a GT star now. He came into European racing through Lamborghini Super Trofeo with Loris Spinelli when he was champion, but as a DTM and a GT racer, he's getting better and better all the time. Right, let's go to Amanda and see how many of the three she can round up, really. Mauro Engel, I think, is there. Mikael Grenier, Raffaele Marciello should be there as well. Amanda, they're all yours.
Oh, we're getting them all together, guys, and it'll be back-to-back poles to open up the season and the IGTC championship, guys. And Mauro, you come in after that amazing lap in Bathurst. You guys will be back on pole here to kick off Kyalami 9-hour. It's going to be a long race ahead. Starting from the pole, what's the advantage?
Yeah, obviously great to be back on pole, and big credit to these guys. You know, they worked very hard. Got a bit delayed on parts arriving late, so they had a big job to get the car ready. So big thank you to the whole Group M team, and obviously great to be on pole, and great job also from these two boys here.
Mick, we talked to Mauro while you were in the car and said that the track, it was just so slippery, not a lot of grip out there. How did you find it today?
For me, honestly, it was fine. I think Mauro, as it was Q1, there was a different category before, so maybe there was some sand or oil on track. Because for me, from the first lap, it felt quite nice. Car balance was good, but I think on race pace, we still have to work a bit, so let's see tomorrow.
Well, you said after Bathurst it was going to take a while to forget what happened there. Do you get to start settling the score tomorrow?
I mean, we know that pole position doesn't count a lot for tomorrow. It's 9 hours. We know TBP game, so I mean there is a lot to do tomorrow, and we will see where we are.
It was a thrash to get this Mercedes ready for race day tomorrow. Do you feel like the Mercedes is where you want to be?
I mean, yeah, we are strong. We know also from last year. We are good on tire degradation. When it's hot, we are also strong. The BMW can be strong in the evening when it's a bit cooler. And I mean, we'll see. It's also high altitude on this track, so I expect them to be really quick tomorrow.
Thumbs up all round. Interesting point, that, of course, that it's not just tyres that work differently in different temperatures, but also different cars are going to work differently in different parts of the race, parts of the day. It's going to be interesting to see how it all pans out come the race tomorrow. Right, as the fans enjoy their barbecue and look forward to more support racing here at Kyalami, we can have a look at how the grid then is going to line up. This is the combined order on the average of the three drivers, with Raffaele Marciello, Mikael Grenier and Mauro Engel taking pole position ahead of Charles Weerts, Dries van Thor and Sheldon van der Linde. It's another BMW third, that of Maxime Martin, Philippe Eng and Augusto Farfus. Then the better of the Audis from the Attempto stable, Patrick Niederhauser, Mattia Drudi and Ricardo Feller outpacing Alex Arca, Marcus Winkelhock and Dennis Marshall. Pro-Am pole to Jules Gounon, Yannick Mettler and Kenny Harble. Gounon getting his lap reinstated, by the way, from Q3, as also did Alex Arca. 7th overall, Pro-Am second, Earl Bamber and Brenton and Stephen Grove, ahead of Miguel Ramos, Lucas Stolt and Reese Barr, with Clint Weston, Charles Oranges and Arnold Neveling coming next, ahead of Marius Jackson, Mo Mir, and then the third driver in the local Audi, which you find a little bit further down the order of Makina, to round out the 10 for the main part of the race, ahead of the Super Cup drivers, Michael Patemba, Sam Moodley, and also the GT4 Audi. That car is, of course, going to be slightly outpaced by the GT3 machines, but an hour of mileage, very useful indeed for Joseph Kinnelly. Right, so the qualifying session comes to an end here at Kyalami, and it is a very hot afternoon. By this stage tomorrow, we'll be about 3 hours in or so. So what you have now will be perhaps indicative of pace for the early part of the race, but then not only does the temperature drop, but also so does the light as well, and an extra factor of the race. Let's look at the highlights then of qualifying, with the cars venturing out for the first of the 3 15-minute segments. Everybody thankfully being able to avoid dramas and making sure that the field powered its way through for 3 times 15 minutes. Early pace being offered up by Yannick Matler, who was looking particularly brave in the Sun Energy by SPS Automotive Performance. Mercedes threading his way through the traffic. Maro Engel likewise in number 999 for Gruppe M. And a bold dive by Luca Stolt coming down through the traffic as well, sorting out the GT4 Audi. Q2 got underway with Brenton Grove again in the Porsche being out early. Michael Grenier taking to the circuit for Gruppe M, and the patched up Mercedes of the Stradale Motorsport team having been off the road in pre-qualifying, also eager for a good time. Brenton Grove went rally crossing, bounced the Porsche back onto the road, but Grenier was looking very, very rapid indeed. A little bit wild coming out of the Crocodiles, which rattled the car up over the curb, and the same was true again of Brenton Grove. Augusto Farfus had this scare when he came across a rather slower Mo Mir, and at the checkered flag, the order was still looking advantage Gruppe M, but yellow 999 Mercedes the one to beat. Q3 with Miguel Ramos heading out on track. Alex Arca presses on for number 99 as well, but ultimately Raffaele Marciello was not to be caught. Fastest in Q3, and also to top the times come the end of qualifying on the average, which will determine the grid order going into tomorrow's race. Great job done by the GMR Gruppe M Racing Mercedes, and so that car will start on pole for the Kyalami 9 hours that begins at 1 o'clock local time tomorrow. We'll see you there. Marcus Finkelhock and Dennis Marshall. Pro-Am pole